Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Annie and this is Unity Consciousness. Thank you so much for stopping by today. I'd like to welcome our new subscribers and also thank those of you who are returning for this week's energy update. And boy, we've got a lot to cover, so let's jump right in. Today, Mars enters the sign of Libra. It is opposite its home sign, so it's not as powerful here. Some people would say it's debilitated. That's what an astrologer would tell you. It just means it's not as powerful as it would be if it were not in the opposite sign of its home sign. You may be feeling the need or the power to address imbalances in your relationships for the purpose of seeking harmony. Remember, Libra is all about harmony. It's all about relationships. And Mars is helping us to achieve that. Be mindful of passive-aggressive tendencies at this time because, you might go in hard and then be like, oh man, I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to be that over the top. So just be mindful. Mars can be pretty over-the-top energy. The Sun in Virgo opposes Saturn also today, and Saturn is retrograde in the sign of Pisces. This is the health and service axis. We're going to talk more about that in a minute because we also have a full moon in Pisces. So we will be discussing the health and service axis. But relative to Saturn and the Sun opposition, you could be facing some personal obstacles here. Remember, Saturn, even though it is retrograde, we may be asking to take responsibility for something or own up to something. It could be a reality moment, a stark reality moment, I'm sorry to say. But where I'm thinking, as I was looking at the energy earlier today, the thought came to me, where has your need to serve others affected your health or your well-being? Are you giving too much and not getting enough back? That also speaks about that relationship imbalance, because Saturn is retrograde, though, this could be a past pattern of issue of behavior that you need to kind of sit with a little bit in retrospect. So just think about that. Then on Tuesday of this week, Uranus is going to go retrograde in Taurus, and then Uranus will be retrograde in Taurus until the 27th of January, joining Pluto and Saturn and Neptune and Venus and Mercury and Chiron, which are all retrograde right now. Heightened Earth events are always, when Uranus is stationing to go retrograde or direct, either way, that energy is heightened. So it increases, Earth events and seismic activities, higher tides. Again, we've got a full moon, which is going to also raise the tides, and other issues relative to that full moon that we will most certainly talk about. Excuse me. Tectonic plate shifts, we've talked about seismic activity. Power outages can be part of this. Again, Uranus is all about power, sudden or electrical circuitry, suddenness, just in general, it's sudden actions that occur, whether that be personal changes or earth events, but it's also about authenticity. It's about wanting to rebel. It's about wanting to be free and get to the truth of a matter. So if you find yourself real indignant on that, that's probably why this week. It can be overwhelming though, so just be mindful as we get further away from the day that Uranus is stationing to go retrograde. This energy will kind of diminish a bit. So just for the short term, be mindful of some of these things that could just pop up. And for the longer term, you could find yourself being just introspective. Again, it's retrograde season about what's keeping you from your authenticity. Think about that. That's a good thing to ponder. Then on Wednesday, we've got this, let's see if I can get it right, super full blue moon in Pisces. What makes it super is it's close to the Earth. Blue means it's the second full moon in a month, and it's a full moon, of course, because the sun and the moon are at opposite sides of the sky, and the moon is currently sitting in Pisces. Pisces is ruled by Neptune. Let's get some fast facts out. This is the third of fourth super full moons. This one is the closest to the Earth, which is why I spoke about the high tides. The tides are going to be really high at this time as well. We've got another Kuiper Belt object to talk about, which is going to create some higher tides. So just be mindful of that as well. Piscean themes are compassion, spirituality, really being void of ego. It's the 12th zodiac sign. So by the time you get all around the zodiac, you realize the ego is now embedded in part of your spiritual body, and it's not necessarily something at the forefront. So it's pretty void of ego. A lot about creativity and dreaminess, but it can also be overwhelm, addictions, flooding, emotional, kind of over the top reactions to things, or certainly compassion would be one thing I would say too. But sometimes things can be a little bit much. Pisces, it just can be a little bit too much sometimes. This is part of the service and health axis. Be mindful of that. And the moon is near Saturn, so it's very serious energy. Reality check could pop in. Like I said, you could be asked to slow down. This week I experienced something just completely out of the blue, came on really quickly. There's that Uranian influence, and it took me down for probably 3 days. I had no choice. I had a lot of work on my plate. I had things I needed to get to, and I just couldn't. I had to submit to the circumstances. So I would suggest doing the same. And be mindful too, if you're giving too much, getting back to that Libra theme, remember Mars just went into Libra, so that's going to be part of this too. If you're giving too much to others, it might be time to step back a little bit. Certainly have patience and compassion, but make sure you're applying it to yourself first before you go over the top with somebody else, okay? Rehab time might not be a bad thing. It certainly served me well this week, that's for sure. Let's see, what else do we have with this? We've got Kuiper belt objects. Let's jump in. I'm a fan of Kuiper belt objects. I don't bring them into all the videos, but I just could not avoid it. I could not avoid it this week. Who's going to be the first one? Maki Maki. So Maki Maki is a Kuiper belt object, and it's currently sitting at 7 degrees of Libra. This full moon is going to also be at 7 degrees, but it's going to be in Pisces. So this is quincunx energy. Quincunx energy. And remember, Maki Maki, Mars just went into Libra, so they're relatively close to each other. It'll be interesting to see as Mars moves closer to Maki Maki, to that 7 degree point, what ends up happening there. But anyway, let's get back to this. So that Maki Maki energy is quincunx energy. Maki Maki was the creator god to the Rapa Nui people. They asking us through quincunx energy, and it can be challenging. Again, it's different elements. Quincunx energy asks us to kind of work with the energy. A little of this, a little of that. It's not trine, it's not square. We kind of have to work with it to make it work for us. And this is asking us to use ecological disaster, in whatever form that means to you, to get back to thriving and a very thriving ecological environment. Just really good resource management is what's asked for here. And I, would love to say that this is all going to be sunshine and rainbows this week, but whenever Uranus goes retrograde, you just never know what could happen. And because Uranus is in the sign of Taurus, Earth events are prominent. So just manage your resources this week. We're also being asked to do that at the time of the super full blue moon. Now, there's another aspect, another Kuiper belt object I'd like to talk about, and that Kuiper belt object is Gong Gong. The first one was Maki Maki, M-A-K-E, M-A-K-E. The second one is Gong Gong, G-O-N-G, G-O-N-G. Gong Gong is at 5 degrees of Pisces, so very near the moon, very near the moon. And it's the only Kuiper belt object with Chinese influence. It is the Chinese god of flooding. It also speaks about cleansing your astral body, getting good spiritual health, which is a Piscean theme as well, and cleansing yourself of toxins. So that could be a theme that pops up at this time. Another Kuiper belt object I would like to speak about. It's not necessarily within orb of the super full blue moon, but I do think it's worth talking about because of what we're going to discuss next, and that would be Orcus, Orcus. Orcus is at 14 degrees of Virgo, and Orcus is the god of the underworld. Orcus punishes oath breakers. Truly, in the next 10 days or so, 10 days, I don't even think it's going to take 2 weeks. In the next 10 days, as the sun gets closer and closer, it'll be interesting to see what happens relative to medical and mental health communities because, like I said, Orcus is also on that health axis in Virgo. So we'll have to see what happens there. But in the meantime, on Friday of this week, we've got a really big conjunction that is going to begin, and you need to be aware of it, and it's going to be happening for a while. So Eris, E-R-I-S, Eris, that's Mars' sister. She is the goddess of discord and chaos. Yep, if we haven't had enough already, July and August certainly have been a lot of bumps in the road for some, that's for sure. A few clients have asked saying, Annie, what is going on? Well, Eris is going to conjunct the North Node, so we better just buckle up. I think we've got some more bumps to hit. So there is a much bigger picture here. Let's dive in. The conjunction occurs at a reaction point, and I actually have a graphic for you. A reaction point midway between a sextile between Uranus, which is retrograde, and Neptune, which is also retrograde, both of which are quincunx Haumea, Haumea, and Sedna, is in the early Gemini degrees, but will soon be retrograding into this quincunx or yod energy. Let me get my graphic, and maybe I can describe it better when I have a paper up as well. So let's get this paper up here. So what we have is a yod. So the energy is flowing towards Haumea here, right? So at the top of our yod, where are we at? Oh yeah, at the top of we've got Neptune up here, we've got Sedna and Uranus down here, and we have Eris right here that is conjunct the North Node. So this is sextile energy, this is quincunx energy, and it's all flowing towards Haumea and popping back to Eris, okay? Keep this in mind if you want to take a quick snap of that. Let me bring it close. But let's talk about that. Let's talk about this. So Eris, this is all about truth and discernment, and asking you to be discerning, extremely discerning as you cross paths with people. Eris it's a Kuiper belt object. On a 3D level, Eris is all about emotional immaturity and senselessness. And on a 5-dimensional level, it's about sensibility and emotional growth. So it's almost like before and after the lesson, because we've all had those lessons, that's for sure. Now, relative to these karmic relationships, because again, it's conjuncting that North Node. So relative to the karmic relationships, have you learned your lesson about following false prophets? You know, those big talkers, the illusionists that come in wanting to sell you snake oil for $5 or $20 or $100, depending on how much money you have, and that'll cure all the ills that you have. But yet you spend all your money, you give them all your money, and you come up empty in the end. And they leave disaster in their wake. That's what Eris is trying to uproot here. And they're drawing our attention, especially conjunct that North Node, into toxic people that are gaining from your loss and bringing it to the forefront of your attention for a purpose. These are people who dim your light to make their light shine brighter. And remember, Pluto and Capricorn is still squaring the nodes of fate. Don't ever forget that. That's why we've had July and August has been pretty tense. So we've got Pluto there too. It's truth-telling energy, trying to get us to see what's hidden, what's been kept from us. What have we bought into that really, maybe we bought into it, but something that we may have bought into that is not going to pan out in the end. You know, the consequences are now coming for the illusionist. The illusionist is going to be front and center, and they're going to be called the trial, which brings us back to Orcus at 14 degrees. Like I said, remember, as the sun gets closer to that 14-degree mark of Virgo, let's see who comes front and center, punishing that Orcus takes into the depths for the punishment because they broke an oath or a promise to someone like you and I who may have bought some snake oil from a salesman somewhere. It should be a very interesting time of exposure and justice. But please use truth and discernment. This energy is going to be with us for a while. Sedna, as we talk about, let's talk about some of these players in this picture. Sedna's in Gemini and will be moving back into this yod formation. And it's all about hardships and sacrifices. And she is the goddess of the sea, again, a water element. We've talked about Eris. We've also spoken about Neptune and Haumea. Haumea is the Hawaiian goddess of fertility. Lord, help the people of Maui. I think of them every day. My son lived there and just recently relocated due to the disaster. Yes, he did live on the west side of the island. I think we've discussed that before. Nonetheless, the Hawaiian goddess of fertility is trying to birth new earth. And so this yod is trying to pump energy into that process. And the energy that's kicking back is going to expose the people that are keeping us from that. We are going to have a greater sense of understanding when we get through this. The other thing I wanted to bring up, let's talk about why this is so important, why I get so geeked about the Kuiper Belt objects is, for example, Gong Gong has a 554-year orbit. This is when these planets start making these conjunctions, we should really be paying attention because there's meaning behind it, that's for certain. Sedna has an 11,400-year cycle. Orcus, a 245-year cycle. Maki Maki, a 308-year cycle. Eris, a 557-year cycle. Haumea, a 283-year cycle. And of course, Pluto has a 248-year cycle. And let's not forget that the United States is having its Pluto return as we speak. Whew! That is certainly a lot that's going on, and I think we're going to, some of this energy will continue, like I said, just asking for some discernment. We should see some relief from some of the stressful energy that we've had the last couple of months by the time we get certainly to mid-October, to the end of October. But this energy that I'm speaking about relative to Eris and the truth and using discernment and exposing people that don't hold true to their word, that's going to be with us for a little while. Be mindful, be patient, be kind, and please be mindful if you are burdening others in any way, shape, or form. There are so many right now just getting hit with burden after burden. Let's join Team Haumea and be ready to move forward with a greater sense of depth, of understanding as we birth new Earth, when all of these outer planets most certainly are they station to go direct, and then we will be ready to move forward with absolute discernment, absolute totality, and be ready to move forward because we know exactly what we need. I know we're long, but I did pull a card for today. I'd like to read that if I could, please. And we are using the Keepers of the Light deck. Let me show you that first. Keepers of the Light Oracle card. And we have Mary Magdalene is up for us today. And boy, there's some, let me see if I can move that and not, looks like she's shining back on herself. Anyway, let's read what the book says. We don't have a full picture of who Mary Magdalene actually was, but we do know from spiritual texts that she was the great visionary and teacher with clairvoyant abilities. She was able to see angels and the soul of her twin flame, Jesus, Master Jesus. After he had passed away, good Lord, she's amazing. She also had the ability to shake up crowds of people to bring their hearts and minds back to the highest good. She now devotes her time to supporting us in bringing about the radical changes the earth needs in order to prosper, and encouraging those who feel the need to teach the joy of spirit. Mary is a rebel at heart in many ways. She helps those light workers who feel restricted by the opinion of others to step up and tell their truth. You have a strong desire to share what you have learned. You may feel people will dismiss you or ridicule you, but don't worry. Mary Magdalene is here to guide you through this process. Your vulnerability is actually your greatest strength because you are trusting the power of your soul, and that part of you can never be broken. You are a wonderful teacher and leader to the world, and the world needs you. You are being backed by heaven, so step forward and share all that you have learned. Thank you, Mary Magdalene, for joining us today and also helping us as we process this yod and some other formations that could be with us this week. I do believe the truth is with us, and the truth will also set us free. I hope you have a fabulous week. Oh, first, if you like this video, please do click the like button. If you want to know when videos are being dropped, please click the subscribe button. Any comments or good Lord, comments or suggestions, place them in the comment box below. I think that's it. Have a fabulous week. Namaste.